I've been building my own kingdom for everyone to see. It exists to keep me safe from harm, and it's intact to glorify me. Nobody helped me build this up. It was me and me alone. I've appointed myself as the king, and I've given myself the throne. But it turns out I'm no ruler, and I have no control. So I have decided to destroy it all. I'm tearing down the walls, kicking down the doors. Everything inside this kingdom is yours. 'Cause what I've made is worthless, and it cannot stand. Come and breathe some life into my empty, cold, dead hands. Down with the fickle king, away with this fantasy. You are the one I need. Death to the kingdom of me. Death to the kingdom of me. I should probably be frightened. This empire's all I know, but it always does more damage than good. I'm afraid it's gotta go. I know that I can't be trusted, 'cause I'm just a man. And if you hadn't given your life for me, a loser would be all that I am. You know they say just follow your heart. I'm afraid that's a load of trash. Your heart will take you down to deep, dark places where you feel like you'll never come back. So I'm coming out of the dark. This facade is I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Yeah, I woke up feeling like it might be a good day to get it done. That's right. Oh, the stadium is just like my second house. Now I'm two-tone talking, they can't shut my mouth. I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Yeah, 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 yeah. I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Oh yeah, welcome to the Two-Tone Talk by God Pod. New logo, new song, new season is upon us. I am spitting everywhere. That's how excited I am about the Two-Tone Talk podcast returning. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Two-Tone Talk podcast, the By God Pod, episode 92. And this is the first episode that I have done like this in a while. We did a couple of episodes with Sal, and then we did an episode with Titans Rossi, but this is the first time I have done a traditional episode alone like this, probably since like the draft. I don't know, I'd have to go back and look. So it is good to see everybody, and a new season is upon us. There is preseason football on the horizon, training camp, and all of the things that we love about this time of year. It is in full swing, and it is good to see everybody. I want to say thank you to everybody that might listen to this or watch this on YouTube that is new, because over the course of the last couple of months, the Two Tone Talk channel has had a little bit of a takeoff, because I wanted to get over 1,000 subs by the time the season got here. I'm at 1,400 subs. A lot of that has to do with the fact of a new segment that I'm doing on the channel where I go through and check out some clips from the national media and such, podcasts, things like that, disrespecting the Titans, and give my thoughts on it. People have taken to that, so those will continue in some form as we continue on. But the weekly podcast episodes are back, and I'm not normally going to do episodes on Thursday. This is being recorded on a Thursday, but I'm normally going to get back to the traditional Monday, Friday, which is what we were doing before. But for today, it's a Thursday episode of the Two Tone Talk podcast, and we're going to talk about training camp. We're going to talk about the preseason, which the Titans play. The Tennessee Titans, in some form, are going to play this Saturday. Oh my goodness, I don't even care if it's the third stringers. I don't even care if it's a bunch of guys that ain't even going to make the roster at the end of the day. There's going to be people out there in two-tone blue playing football, and that's all that matters to me right now. When you're as desperate for football as I am, and we are, you're just glad to even have anything. I watched the Hall of Fame game this past Thursday. It was a terrible game, but it was football, and that's all that matters. So today we're talking about all of the big developments, and one thing that just happened a few days ago, somebody in the chat, Rashid, said, I'm upset about the Caleb Farley situation. What's going on with Caleb Farley? Because I'm going to talk about him here in a little bit. And I was just on Twitter before I started this episode, and I haven't seen anything new about Caleb Farley. So please inform me live here in real time what's going on there. But one thing that I would like to talk about briefly, because it's just such new news over the last few days, is the signing of Quandre Diggs. We knew the Titans needed a safety. So Sammy, hold on, I'm going all over the place here, but Sammy says that Caleb Farley is injured again. What is it, like a significant? I haven't seen any. Hold on, let me get on Twitter here, because I haven't seen anything about Caleb Farley today, and I've been on Twitter checking out, updates. Paul Kaharski says Caleb Farley is out for a few weeks with a hamstring. Wow. Okay. So not a like a season ender, but definitely probably, man, that's particularly devastating for him, because he needed those preseason reps, right? I mean, he needed the preseason reps, and if he's going to be out a few weeks, that would mean he is going to miss all of the preseason games. And to me, that solidifies that he's probably not going to make the roster. I mean, he was one of those guys, he needed these preseason reps, and now he's not going to get them. So that is just a huge bummer for him. But we're talking about Quandre Diggs, the newest signing for the Tennessee Titans, the newest in what has been a very eventful offseason, obviously, for the Titans. Free agent signings all over the place. Trades being made, the draft and everything. And Quandre Diggs, we knew we had to get a safety. I mean, we've seen Justin Simmons' name thrown around. I'm guessing he's just asking for more money than what they were willing to pay. But appreciate letters by Weston Jade, who said, loving the content, keep it going. Appreciate that very much. We knew they had to get somebody. Quandre Diggs was one of those names that had been thrown around as a possibility. And he's a multiple-time Pro Bowler, obviously, has had a phenomenal career up until this point. And he is another guy that the narrative apparently about him is, well, he's washed. He's older. His best playing days are behind him. That kind of seems to be the thoughts from a lot of people about this Titans teams. Keep in mind, they said the same thing about DeAndre Hopkins last season when he signed with Tennessee. He magically became washed. And then he went out and had a great year, and I'm expecting that again. I know he's a little banged up right now, but I'm confident he'll be ready by week 1. Calvin Ridley, he's not even 30. He's 29 years old, and apparently they think that the very day that he turns 30, he's just not going to be able to stand up off the couch to participate in football anymore. Never mind, he's had 2 seasons where he didn't play, so he's got a little fresher legs than somebody his age would have. C. Russ in the chat says, glad I found you. You're my favorite Titans channel. I like the different things you do. I appreciate that very, very much. If you're new, this is a weekly podcast. Once the season really gets in full swing, I do episodes on Monday and Friday to recap everything that happened, and sometimes we'll throw in an extra day if the Titans have a midweek game or something, or if a big update happens. But I like the Quandre Diggs signing. Jamal Adams. I didn't mind the Jamal Adams thing, but it was like it didn't necessarily make me feel better about the position we were in with safety. So I like the Quandre Diggs signing. What a job I think Ran Carthon has done this offseason of, and yes, I do react after the games, Rashid said. That's going to be here too. Every Sunday after the games, I'll be uploading videos, giving my thoughts on whatever happens. Hopefully a bunch of wins. But I think Ran Carthon has just done a magnificent job this offseason of totally turning over this entire roster for the most part. I mean, completely new secondary, completely new wide receiving group. Offensive line is I mean, I think you might have maybe 2 returning starters, and one of them is Peter Skoronski, who was a rookie last year. So I think that a lot of big moves this offseason to totally turn this roster around. So kudos to Ran Carthon in the front office to put this team from, it cracks me up when I watch these clips of the national media talking about the Titans. And it's the same thing every time. They talk about, oh yeah, all of these great moves the Titans made. They've got a ton of talent across the board. And then they follow it up with, they're probably going to go 4-13 and have a top 5 draft pick next year. Like, does the talent that we got mean nothing? Somebody in the chat has already alluded to the fact that there are already some injuries, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here in a second. But there's some injuries on the horizon. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins gonna miss a couple of weeks here. Cheeto Awuzie has been a little banged up. I don't know how much of that is just it's training camp. You don't want to get guys hurt. I mean, because we've seen reports from teams all over the league of guys having major injuries like torn ACLs. The guy for the Falcons yesterday that had a major injury enough that he was carted off and taken to the hospital. That kind of stuff happens. So I don't know how much of it is just them being cautious, especially with a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, obviously, if his injury was significant enough to keep him out a few weeks, then that's a pretty significant injury. But I think that in training camp, you might see a situation where they're just going to play it more cautious and safe. But I do hate it for a guy like Caleb Farley, who really needed the preseason reps. So a lot of excitement. I don't know if you could tell. A lot of excitement. Preseason football against the 49ers this weekend, and I'm going to be watching, and I'm going to talk to you in a second about what I'm going to be watching for. But today, Titans Rossi is in the house. I had Titans Rossi on the podcast probably last month. Gosh, when was it? Time is a flat circle. But all I know is that the calendar has shifted to August. And if the NFL season, which starts in September, is the party, August is the pregame, and we get to watch some football, some preseason football, and I am not going to the game this week against the 49ers. And as they are saying in the chat, the new stadium is apparently going to have a mosh pit. That's going to be something. How do you get into the Titans mosh pit? So today I'm calling it, I don't even know what I'm calling it, the segment of fives. I'm going to give you a few different categories of 5 guys that one of them is 5 guys that have surprised me in training camp. That's the first section. The next section is 5 players we haven't really heard about. Okay. Then we've got 5 players I'm most excited about, 5 things I'm most concerned about, and lastly, 5 things that I'm looking for specifically this Saturday night as the preseason begins. And so we are starting that segment with 5 players that I've been pleasantly surprised by. And the beginning of this is going to be a little bit depressing because the first guy on the list is Caleb Farley. Caleb Farley had been putting in some good reps in training camp. That's why I'm so bummed out to hear about his injury that's going to keep him out for a few weeks, because I thought that Caleb Farley had really showed some spunk. I mean, and I'll be honest with you guys. Caleb Farley, I don't know if there's anybody on this team that I am rooting for harder than Caleb Farley. We all know the personal things that he has dealt with in his life. And I want to say real quick, in the chat we have someone named Dumpy who says I am his new favorite, his or her new favorite YouTuber, period. Ravens fan here, loving the content. I want to say I appreciate a Ravens fan of all things showing up here. But we welcome everybody. Caleb Farley, I'm so upset to hear about the injury, because I think if he's not going to be able to get the preseason reps, then I think, he already had a small chance of only a small chance of making the roster. But if he's not going to get those preseason reps, I just don't see him making the roster, and I hate that, because I was pleasantly surprised by Caleb Farley in the training camp clips that we've seen. Had some good one-on-one reps. You can tell he is determined and he's trying. But man, it's just the injuries and of course the stuff in his personal life. It's hard not to root for him. But man, it just has not worked out. And another first-round miss, unfortunately, by John Robinson. But I had been pleasantly surprised by Caleb Farley. And I'm sure he, maybe he'll find a spot on the practice squad and be able to get some work in there. The next guy, number 4, that I am pleasantly surprised by is T'Vondre Sweat. Now, I didn't expect him to be bad. I wasn't expecting him to be a bum, but we knew there was some risk with this pick. Okay, second round pick when the Titans didn't have a third round pick, so you really needed them first 2 picks to be good. They take T'Vondre Sweat. We know there have been some in the Titans world that have been very skeptical about this pick. Thought it was a reach for him with that second round pick. I was worried because then we got to camp, we got to practice, and he wasn't there, and there were injuries, and there were things, and is he going to get in shape, and is he going to drop some pounds, and all this stuff. What we have seen, and I know it's just training camp clips, that's all we have to go by right now. What we have seen of him in training camp, he's been putting some work in. He has been throwing guys around. I saw the clip of him pushing Lloyd Cushenberry into the backfield. And he has been, according to reports from reporters that have been there, he's been making plays. He's been performing really well in practice. He's got, my only concern is you can tell by his personality, he's got a little bit of that Taylor Lewan, goofy with the media type thing, but I hope it stays kind of in that realm, because you don't want, if things start going poorly and the Titans lose a game here, drop a game there, you don't want this to be one of the guys who causes issues in the locker room and with the media and things like that. I don't think that'll happen. I hope it doesn't happen. But in terms of his play on the field, he's had a very good training camp and kind of putting a lot of people a little more at ease that were concerned about him for some of the issues. We've all heard about the things that people were concerned about T'Vondre Sweat. But if he can figure it out and if he can stay the course, him and Jeffrey Simmons could be lethal on the defensive line together. That could be a problem for every offensive line in this league. And if you're talking about people getting kind of into it with the media, Jeffrey Simmons probably needs to set a little better example. Jeffrey probably need to, because we were talking about Jeffrey needing to kind of watch over T'Vondre Sweat and make sure he's staying in line. We can't have Big Jeff calling reporters names on the live show, okay? But he apologized, and I think that was just an out of character moment for him. But yeah, if Devondre Sweat can keep this thing going, man, him and Jeffrey Simmons could be lethal together. Continuing, players I've been pleasantly surprised by in camp. At number 3, I'm saying Kyle Phillips. With the new additions that the Titans have made at wide receiver of Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, you still got D Hop. You know Treylon Burks is going to make the roster. It kind of felt like the Kyle Phillips of the world were being pushed out, you know. But the clips that we're seeing emerging of Kyle Phillips, and we know he's great at the one-on-one drills, okay? But I mean, we're seeing him in team period, and reporters are taking note. Kyle Phillips had a very good training camp, and you wonder now what are his chances? You know, if he has a good preseason, what are his chances? I don't want to ever see him at punt returner again. But let's remember last year, Kyle Phillips against Pittsburgh. You remember that Pittsburgh game on Thursday night? He had a really good game. He had a really good game. And then against Tampa Bay, no, that game was awful, but he had a good performance. And then Vrabel took him out because he couldn't return punts. I still don't understand that one. So the talent, there is something there with this guy. I mean, the key is, can he stay healthy? We have seen time and time again, he gets hurt. He's a smaller guy, so that's a concern. But so far through camp, he's making his case to where you at least have to consider. We'll see what he does in the preseason, but he's at least making his case, you know, that he could be a nominee to be at the bottom of the depth chart in terms of being the wide receivers on this team. Number 2, Josh Wiley. Now, I knew Josh Wiley was going to make the roster, absolutely. But when they released the depth chart the other day, they've got Chig and Josh Wiley as tight end 1A and 1B. He's not even the number 2 tight end. He's sharing the number 1 position with Chig Okonkwo. So I think, and based on some of the things we've heard coming out of camp and the clips we've seen, I think they've got big plans for Josh Wiley. And you know, we saw some flashes last year of Josh Wiley. We saw, you know, little things here and there, but I mean, I'm kind of all for him having an elevated role in this offense because he's a huge guy. He is such a physical presence, and I think he brings something different than Chig Okonkwo to the table. I think Chig almost comes across like another wide receiver. I mean, you know, but Josh Wiley, he's big and he's powerful. And so I'm very intrigued. And it was not something that I was really like looking for. You know, when you thought about guys that you're ready to see in camp and see how they do, Josh Wiley wasn't one of the first names that came to mind, but he's having a good camp, and they apparently believe in him enough that they've got him sharing that tight end 1 position with Chig Okonkwo. So that's a guy that I am excited about. And another, the last guy at number 1 that I've been pleasantly surprised by in training camp, the last name I expected to be talking about is Malik Willis. Now listen, I am not here to tell you that there is some kind of QB controversy. Don't take this as me saying, should the Titans give Malik a... No. The reason I'm so pleasantly surprised by Malik Willis and what we've seen and what we've heard about from him in camp is that I considered him out. I thought it's going to be Levis, it's going to be Rudolph, and Malik's probably going to end up on somebody else's practice squad somewhere. That's what I saw coming. But then they had that practice in the stadium in front of fans, and the reports coming out of that were, hey, Malik played well. Malik was the best quarterback here today. That's not me saying, you know, that I'm out on Will or anything. But that particular day, man, Malik Willis did well. And he's going against the backups, maybe even the backups to the backups. He did well. Something to note. And then every practice, it seems, you hear reports, hey, Malik Willis, another good day. Malik Willis doing some good things. Malik Willis got a shot with the second string today and did well. So, listen, I am a type of thing with Malik. I'll believe it when I see it. Okay. He's going to get playing time in the preseason, obviously. It's probably mostly going to be him and Rudolph. I do think Levis will play some, but overall, we all know it's going to be mostly Malik Willis, Mason Rudolph. I don't think there's any chance that he jumps Mason Rudolph. I think the best shot Malik Willis has is that if he is impressive in the preseason, if he does well, continues to do well, you could make the argument that they would keep all three on the roster, because you can do that now. They might keep all three if Malik continues to show that he's improved. I think that's the best case scenario for Malik. What I want to see from Malik Willis in an actual game is, can he actually drop back, go through his reads, and throw the ball? Because I feel like when Malik gets in there in an actual game, he runs around like a chicken with his head cut off. He immediately starts running around. I mean, he immediately starts running back and forth. You know, it's like Tom and Jerry or something, you know? And some of that has to do with the fact that we've had a terrible offensive line. I will give him that. But I just would like to see, it always feels chaotic when he gets in there. That's the main thing. He's very athletic. He's a great athlete. But in an actual game, and we'll see, he's going to play in the preseason. That's the best look we're going to get at him. I think the best scenario for Malik Willis is that he would, they would keep all three, because he's not jumping Mason Rudolph, I don't think, unless something unforeseen happens. All right, now we are going to the next category. The next category, this is 5 players we really haven't heard much about. It's very specific. 5 players we really haven't heard much about. 5 players who have kind of been low-key or missing throughout training camp that I've been looking for. And the first one is kind of not fair by me. The first one I put on here is Harold Landry, but I'm not worried about Harold Landry. I just was putting this list together, and I thought, man, when's the last time I heard anything about Harold Landry? Like, is he even on the property? Is he even out there? You know, is he even in the vicinity of this place? Because I haven't seen a picture of him. I haven't seen a video of him. I'm not worried about Harold. I think Harold's great. But it was just like, is he, like, nobody's even mentioned him. I've heard plenty of mention of Simmons and all that, but I guess Harold Landry is kind of a given. They paid him big money. He's a big-time player, in my opinion. But just putting this list together, and I was like, I ain't heard nothing about Harold Landry, but I'm not worried about it. And number 4, in terms of players we just haven't heard much about, how about Sebastian Joseph Day? You know, this is a guy that they're going to need to play. I'm not going to say he's going to be a starter on the defensive line, but this is a rotational guy that's going to have to get in there. And this is a signing they made with the expectation that, like, this is going to be a guy that gets in games and gets plenty of playing time. And I haven't heard anything about him. I haven't even seen his name mentioned from anybody. Is he hurt? I don't know. I haven't heard a thing about Sebastian Joseph Day from any reporters. I haven't seen a picture of him. I haven't seen any videos of him. I haven't seen one tweet that's like, hey, Sebastian Joseph Day made a nice play today. I haven't heard a thing about him. So I have no idea. Continuing on here at number 3 of players that we just haven't heard very much about. That's a terrible quality photo, but that is Daniel Brunskill. Now, last year's offensive line was terrible. But Daniel Brunskill was not the like worst. He was aight, which is better than what you could say about most of that offensive line. But now we're seeing the depth chart come out, and especially with Sadiq Charles retiring, what in the world? Just according to Brian Callahan, just decided football ain't for him anymore. All right, bud, here you go. See ya. There's an opening at that right guard position, and it's interesting that Daniel Brunskill, who is there, he's not even being considered. He's not even an option. I think he was listed as like the backup center. So I'm just kind of like, is it just a matter of the type of offense they want to run? They just don't see Daniel Brunskill fitting into that, or is he just not in shape? Like, what's going on? But Daniel Brunskill's just kind of been treated as like a backup, pretty much. Number two, this is a random one, but Kearis Jackson. You know, if you remember, I know people might forget about Kearis, but I mean, he made the 53-man roster last year. He made it. He was the kick and the punt returner, and I thought, you know, if guys got hurt and they needed him, I thought he could be a good, you know, potential guy to come in and get some snaps at wide receiver. But he got hurt, and so people have kind of forgotten about him. But I really was considering the idea of him making the roster this time. I was like, hey, who knows? They drafted Jaquan Jackson in the late rounds to theoretically to return kicks and punts, because especially with the new kickoff rule, that's even more important now. But I was expecting Kearis Jackson to be in the mix. I haven't even heard the first thing about him. I haven't even, I don't know if I've even seen a clip of him. I haven't seen his name mentioned. So I would venture to say Kearis is probably not making the 53-man roster. I'm assuming you will see him in the preseason for sure. But one thing I will say is that this is the type of guy, Kearis Jackson, who really does not benefit from them bringing in all these new guys. On a Mike Vrabel wide receiving core, yes, Kearis Jackson would probably be an option to make it. But considering the Ridleys and the Boyds and the Hopkins and the Burks, really not good news for guys like Kearis Jackson. And not good news for Kyle Phillips either, although I will say with his camp that he's had, he's at least putting himself in the discussion. Nathan in the chat says that Mike Keith has been talking up Sebastian Joseph Day. So maybe, at least that's something. I haven't been listening to that. So if Mike Keith, I trust Mike Keith now. So apparently there is somebody talking about Sebastian Joseph Day. So at least we know he's there. And the number one player that I just have not heard much about at this training camp that I was expecting is Cedric Gray. And I know that Cedric Gray is a rookie, but fourth rounder, right? And I think that a lot of people, because of that inside linebacker position kind of being wide open for the Titans, I think a lot of people were expecting Cedric Gray not to come in and start, but to at least come in and make some noise and get into the rotation a little bit. I haven't heard anything about him. I've seen Brownlee in clips doing some good things. I've of course seen Tavondre Sweat. You know, we see JC Latham, but Cedric Gray is just kind of not been a major factor of things we're hearing about from camp. We saw the depth chart. He's not even, you know, I don't even think he's first or second or third string right now, and I know that's subject to change. He's obviously going to get some playing time in the preseason. That's a guy I'm looking forward to seeing. But I mean, a lot of people were saying that Cedric Gray was the steal of the draft for where the Titans got him. And so I know he's a rookie, so you got to give people time to get acclimated and get used to things. And maybe just the fact that he's a rookie and that's the linebacker position, you know, you want to not just throw him to the wolves. But I was expecting to hear a little more in camp of Cedric Gray. We now move on to the next category here, which is 5 players I'm most excited to watch. And this is for the season. This is not like preseason. I'm talking about the 5 players pretty much that I am most excited about. And I will go ahead and tell you, I kind of cheated on these. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. But the first one, that's a terrible quality picture. But the first is L'Jarius Sneed at 5. I don't think it can be overstated how important it is to have a shutdown corner in this league. And I think L'Jarius Sneed is that. And like I said earlier, kudos to Rand Carthon for totally turning this secondary room around. I mean, Sneed, Awuzie, McCreary, Hooker, and Diggs, that's a pretty solid secondary. And I'm really happy to have L'Jarius Sneed. I think Um, L'Jarius Sneed was a huge part of what the Kansas City Chiefs have been doing. You know, you hear a lot about Mahomes and Kelsey and Chris Jones, but L'Jarius Sneed, I mean, go back and watch when they played the Dolphins, I think in the playoffs. L'Jarius Sneed shut Tyreek Hill down, and that's not an easy feat. So I'm just so excited to have him there. Obviously, I checked out his interview. You can watch it on the channel after this. You know, where I talked about, you know, how he talked about championship swagger and things like that. And so hopefully he can just, you know, veteran player who has been there, done that. I'm just so excited to have him on the team, and you know, especially considering who was our number one corner last year, Fulton. All right, number 4, Tajay Spears. I think, you know, yes, I'm excited about Tony Pollard. I think he can really help a lot too. But I'm so excited about Tajay Spears. He was obviously kind of setting behind Derrick Henry last year. So he had not limited. I mean, he got a lot of playing time, but it was always he was second fiddle to Derrick, and I get that. But I'm so excited to see him get in an elevated role. I think he is such a playmaker. I mean, in that last game of the season against the Jags, you really saw him just that touchdown play around the corner. I mean, this is a quick, shifty, very athletic, very fast, very quick, and packs a punch. He's a smaller guy, but he packs a punch. Am I frozen? Am I frozen, people? It looks like I'm frozen. 1 second. For those of you listening on Spotify, you probably don't know what I was just talking about. I was frozen on the thing, but I got it fixed now. I'm so excited about Tajay Spears. Just especially when you pair him with Pollard, who I think is a good compliment to him. But I'm excited about what Spears brings to the passing game. I'm excited, of course, to see him run the ball. We saw hints of it last year. Him breaking off big runs. And so, exciting player that I think not a lot of people are going to recognize the name outside of us. But I think people will. He would be a steal in like a fantasy draft because I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna have a big year. Number 3 in terms of players I am most excited about, and if I freeze up again, please let me know. This thing's been acted up, but this is where I'm kind of cheating because I am including the Simmons Sweat combo that I'm so as I alluded to earlier. If Tavondre Sweat keeps doing what we're seeing in training camp, he's huge. Okay, he is huge. You put him beside Jeffrey Simmons and you let Jeffrey do what he does. I mean, if Tavondre Sweat, think about this. On the interior of an offensive line, if Tavondre Sweat does what he's been doing in training camp and just pushes dudes around, and you've got to double team him, if you've got to double team Tavondre Sweat, who's going to block Jeffrey Simmons one on one? If you've got to double team Jeffrey Simmons, if Tavondre Sweat keeps doing this and he's just pushing guys around, that could be, and then not to mention Harold Landry on the outside, and we've got the other side, which is a problem, which we're going to talk about in a second. But I mean, Sweat and Simmons, that could be a problem for a lot of teams. So I'm very excited to watch those two guys in the middle of the defensive line. That could be nasty. All right, number 2, of course, the quarterback, Will Levis. I know a lot of people are iffy on Will Levis. A lot of people in the national media, you know, I've been watching the clips, but based on things like his debut in Atlanta, based on what we saw in Miami on that Monday night game, going to Pittsburgh on a short week for his second start ever, his first on the road, we know he's got the fire. Okay, we know he's got the heart. He's kind of got that Tom. People are going to think I'm comparing him to Tom Brady. I'm not talking about the way he plays. I'm talking about, you know, Brady just had that crazy look in his eye. Like, I used to watch Tom Brady and be like, he's probably insane. Like, he's probably nuts when it comes to playing football. He turns into like a lunatic. That's kind of what I saw from Will Levis on that Monday night game in Miami when they came back. Like that look in his eye, I was like, this dude's a maniac. Okay, so we know he's got the heart. We know he's got the big arm. I'm just excited to see him actually in a position to succeed. Okay, I'm excited to see him with Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd and D Hop and Spears and Pollard, and hopefully J.C. Latham can hold down. Latham and Skoronski can hold down the left side of the line. We can figure out the right side. I'm excited to see him hungry with something to prove. Everybody's talking about Richardson. Everybody's talking about Stroud. People are even excited about Bryce Young. But Will Levis with a new girlfriend. That ain't got nothing to do with anything, but he does have a new girlfriend. Hopefully that's not a distraction. But I'm excited. I'm excited for him going into preseason and camp knowing he is the starter. Not backing up Tannehill or anything. I'm excited. And at number one, once again, I cheated with number one, but it's my podcast. What are you going to do? The wide receiving group. I mean, Calvin Ridley. I mean, we used to pray for times like this. Okay. And to see Ridley, Hopkins, Boyd, I know the media is trying to find any way to spin this and say that it's not a good thing. They're scrambling to be like, how can we make this bad? But the stuff we're seeing from Calvin Ridley, let me just talk about Calvin first. Apparently, I promised myself I wasn't going to get in any trouble today. I have love for my friends in Jacksonville, but they wanted him back. They wanted him back, and they thought they were going to get him back. And then when he chose to go to Tennessee, all of a sudden the narrative becomes, well, he sucks. So, he goes to, like, I never want to be that fan. Like, I can go ahead and tell you, Derrick Henry is now with Baltimore, and Derrick Henry's awesome. He's awesome. I would say he's awesome if he were still with us, so I'm not going to change it just because he went to another team. Derrick Henry is a monster. But apparently Calvin Ridley, when he chose to go from Jacksonville to Tennessee, he became this guy who couldn't run routes, who had terrible hands, who was not a good teammate, who didn't give enough effort. Everything that went wrong in Jacksonville, and it really went wrong in Jacksonville the second half of the year last year, it was all Calvin's fault. Isn't that convenient? The guy that left, let's just blame it all on him. Because that's easy. He's gone. He left. He joined another team in our division. So let's blame it all on him so that we don't have to pretend that maybe our quarterback is inconsistent. As for me, I'm watching a dude, and again, it's just training camp clips. That's all we have to go by. But my guy is fast. My guy is all over the place. And every reporter, has raved. Like, Calvin Ridley is all over the place out here. He's going off. And so, I'm glad to have him. I am very excited for him in particular because I would like to think he's got something to prove too. Because we've all heard the rumblings about, well, he got overpaid and he's not worth that kind of money. Of course, now that every other wide receiver's gotten paid, he's not even like toward the top. So I'm excited about Calvin. D-Hop, he's DeAndre Hopkins. Like, come on. Like, they're going to try and spin that into like, well, how much longer can he do this? He can do it till he don't want to do it anymore. he's too shifty. He's too shifty, and he avoids hits too much for him to just not be able to contribute. And keep in mind, he's I don't want this to come across as disrespectful, but like technically he's like wide receiver too. So last year he was having to carry it. Now he's got help. And then, of course, Tyler Boyd, who I think might be the best wide receiver 3 in the league. I'm excited about that connection. Obviously, the connection to Brian Callahan. Very excited about Boyd. I'm just excited about the receiving group. And people are asking how I feel about the secondary. I'm thrilled about the secondary. Thrilled about the secondary and the wide receiver group. Now we go to the next category as we are nearing the end here. These are 5 things that I am most concerned about with this Titans team as it stands right now on August the 8th, 2024. 5 things I'm most concerned about. Coming in at number 5, some of you have already alluded to it in the comments, the injury bug. If you've been watching this Titans team, especially the last few years, you're crazy if you're not at least a little bit concerned about this. I mean, we're going to find out. Was it a Vrabel thing? Was it the way Vrabel did things that was contributing? We're going to find out. But, I mean, I live in constant fear of injury reports and, you know, guys tweaking a hammy and guys, you know, twisting an ankle and all of this stuff. I mean, we've seen every injury you can think of for the last few years. And it's a new coach, new regime, but of course, you have to at least be a little, if you're a Titans fan, you got to be a little concerned about the injuries just because they always seem to plague this team. This might seem a little hypocritical, but at number 4, I'm going to say Will Levis. Not that he's given me anything to be over the top concerned about, but the reason I have to put him on this list is because I think this team, in a way, might live and die with him. If he's good, this team can be quite good, in my opinion. If he's not good, this team could be pretty bad. It all kind of, and with most teams you could say that about the quarterback, but with Will especially, it's like, okay, we've given you everything you need. Like, all of these receivers and Spears and Pollard and new O-line, we've given you more than enough to be successful. Now it's on you. So that makes me excited to watch him. Makes me concerned too, because we saw good things from him last year, but we also saw some turnovers. We also saw some times where he might have held onto the ball a little too long. He was a rookie with a terrible offensive line. We'll give him that. But, you know, I'm talking about injury reports. I don't want to see him flying through the air on 2nd and 10 to try to get a first down. I don't want to see him lowering his shoulder and trying to run somebody over. As cool as that is in the moment, he's going to find himself on that injury report pretty quick. So I think it's fair to put Will Levis on the things that I'm most concerned about too, because I think it kind of lives and dies with him. At number 3, that is Kenneth Murray. The inside linebackers is what that represents. The inside linebacker position. I know Kenneth Murray has apparently had a good camp. That's great. We know our guy, Gibby. We know he's flying around. But it is still one of the weaker positions on the team right now. I don't know if they're going to try to make any more moves or what, but I'm still a little concerned about that inside linebacker position because we know with the Chargers, Kenneth Murray was not the best in coverage. And so, a little concerned about that. Number 2 on the list of things I am most concerned about, the offensive line. And that's a picture of Dylan Radins right there, kind of representing that. Sadiq Charles was leading the way in the race to be the starting right guard. Now he retired. So now that's an open spot. Dylan Radins, possibility. But I still have yet to see a strong vote of confidence for Dylan Radins. We never saw it from Vrabel and that staff, and now you got a new staff, and it seems like they're even a little skittish about this guy. I hope I'm just reading that wrong. But Dylan Radins is surely a strong option to be right guard. I don't, like I said earlier, I don't know why Daniel Brunskill's name's not even thrown out there. But I'm also a little concerned about right tackle, too. The whole right side of the line. I mean, I think Nicholas Petit-Frere is probably going to get the job. But, I mean, I've never really been jumping for joy about him. He started an entire season, not last year, but the year before. And even that was, I mean, it wasn't like, man, glad we got a good right tackle. It was like he was serviceable, I guess. The one saving grace is that now we have Bill Callahan coaching offensive line, and that helps. I mean, that helps a lot of things. So, you know, hopefully with him leading the way, with Bill Callahan leading the way, they can figure out, you know, where they need to go with that right side of the line. And last but not least, edge rush is the thing I'm most concerned about. Arden Key, obviously suspended for 6 games. So not off to a good start for him this year. And there is still a chance. There are a lot of rumors that the Titans could sign somebody. We've seen, you know, rumors that the Titans might try to make another splash and sign a good, you know, edge rush, outside linebacker type guy to come in. But as it stands right now, somebody's going to have to step up. Like, somebody is going to have to rise from the ashes to try to create a pass rush. And so, on that note, the final category that we will go over here today, 5 things I am looking for this Saturday in the preseason game and throughout the preseason, and it is edge rush. I'm looking to see that, I mean, will somebody like a Rashad Weaver or Brian Callahan today, very complimentary of Jalen Harrell. The last pick they made in the draft from Michigan, edge rush guy. Could somebody like that emerge? Caleb Murphy, could somebody like that? I mean, they could still sign somebody, but for right now, you've got to use this preseason, starting this Saturday, to figure out, is there anybody that can step up on the other side of that line and get to the quarterback? Rashad Weaver is a nominee. Caleb Murphy's a nominee. Jalen Harrell is a nominee. Somebody's going to step up. Number 4, Treylon Burks. I am interested in seeing what Treylon Burks... I don't think it's an issue of whether or not Treylon Burks is going to make the team. He's going to make the team. But, okay, dude, you're a first-round pick. You're a first-round pick. It has not worked out. We have had to bring in DeAndre Hopkins. We have had to bring in Calvin Ridley. We've had to bring in Tyler Boyd. You are now wide receiver 4. And this is either going to be the nail in the coffin, or is this going to be the spark that lights a fire under him? New coach, new offense, new regime. Is he going to find a place here in this offense to finally look like the guy we wanted him to be? Or can he stay healthy? Is he going to just get totally overshadowed by everybody? I don't know, but I expect him. I don't know how much this Saturday, but throughout the preseason, I think Treylon Burks, he's going to have to make some noise, because there are other guys here now, and you can get forgotten quick. I don't want him to, though. I like Treylon. Number 3 on this list of things I'm looking forward to throughout the preseason, specifically this Saturday, is, again, the offensive line. I'm looking to see, specifically on that right side. I think we know the left side is going to be Latham, Skoronski, Cushenberry. But that right side, is somebody going to step up? Dylan Radins, Nicholas Petit-Frere. Yes, those guys are probably leading the way, but some of these other fellas. Where's Jalen Duncan? I mean, is this guy, that's a big old boy. One of these guys going to make some noise to throw their name in the hat to get a starting position? Because I still think it's wide open. Open auditions, baby. Number 2 on the list of things I'm looking forward to watching this Saturday, that is just a picture of Mason Rudolph, but the quarterbacks. I mean, I know Levis is going to get some playing time, but Rudolph and Willis, How bad would Mason Rudolph have to play, and how good would Malik Willis have to play for him to jump over Rudolph? I don't even think that's a possibility. But, with the uncertainties about Will Levis, it seems like quarterbacks always have to miss a week here or there. I'm excited to watch both Mason Rudolph and Malik Willis play the quarterback position, see how they do. And last but not least, the number one thing I'm most excited about watching this preseason and this Saturday is just Brian Callahan. First time head coach. And I know it's not the regular season. It's not like the heat of that, this game matters toward our record. But I'm excited to just see his demeanor. I'm excited to see how he carries himself. I know we're not going to see the whole playbook because you don't do that in the preseason. But I'm excited to just see how he does things and really the whole staff. I mean, it's an entire new coaching staff. I'm excited to watch Callie. I'm excited to watch all of the new coaches. Denard Wilson, obviously getting a ton of praise. I'm excited. That's the key thing. I'm excited to just watch football. That's what I should have said. I'm just excited to watch football. This Saturday, the Tennessee Titans playing a little preseason ball against the 49ers, and I can't wait to watch it. Hey, I will be back Monday with episode 93. We'll recap the preseason game against the 49ers. We'll talk about what happens. We'll talk about what might happen going forward and any news that happens between now and then. I will see you Monday at 1 Eastern, noon Central for the Two Tone Talk podcast, baby. We are back. We are doing this thing weekly, and eventually we'll get to 2 episodes a week. God bless you, everybody. Tighten up. Have a good rest of your day. Bye, everybody.